Quick, which president of the United States deported more illegal aliens than any other president in American history? I'll give you a quick hit. It was not Donald Trump.
Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported.
Won't you at least consider unilaterally freezing deportations for the parents of deferred action kids?
Here's the problem that I have, Jose. My job in the executive branch is supposed to be to carry out the laws that are passed.
President Obama deported over 3 million people. And unlike today, when he was doing it, the media literally went along for the ride.
We got here and there was a lot of action almost immediately.
We came in, saw the individual, we had eyes on our target. You know, he was able to come out of the business for us. We were able to apprehend him without incident. At the same time, we also brought out his brother, who also is believed to be illegal in the United States. We were able to run him on our portable fingerprint scanner. He did have a hit with DHS, so he's been previously encountered.
With us now, former director under President Obama of ICE, John Sandweg. It's good to see you, sir. Let's take out what's happening during these protests, so not what the cameras are seeing. Is what ICE is doing now materially different than what it was doing in the Obama administration?
Yeah, Leland, I think there are some key differences. There's certainly things that ICE is doing today that overlaps, but let me break down for you quickly where ICE's arrests happened during the Obama administration, and really through the Trump administration, the Biden administration, and up until the summer of 2025. But very quickly, the majority of ICE arrests under Obama actually happened at the border. So these were individuals who were apprehended by Border Patrol coming back into the United States, and ICE would take custody of them. The second biggest tranche would be people who were already in prison or jail. So these were not arrests happening out in the streets, but of individuals taking custody of them when they were in a state prison, a federal prison, or jail. And then in those at-large ones, where there's that, similar to what you're seeing today, where ICE agents are making arrests on the streets, those were incredibly targeted, Leland. There was a lot of vetting of the individual's criminal history before the teams would go out, and they were laser focused on that target, not going out there trying to round everybody up. We're seeing today tactics that are much designed to grab more people, but they're less targeted, and that is a major piece of the problems that I think we're seeing in these images that we're seeing on the screen now.
The flip side, though, is that the protesters, resistance agitators, whatever you want to call them, they don't seem to be making a distinction. They seem to just be trying to impede ICE no matter what. And I'm thinking that if the same kind of people had been coming out and resisting or fighting with ICE when you were the director, and if people had been doxing the agents, would CNN, you think, have covered it the same way?
You know, I don't know, Leland. I'll tell you this. I think the agents, they have it incredibly difficult. I think there are a lot of reasons for that, and I think a lot of missteps for that. There's been an erosion of trust between the public and the department. I have to say, Leland, I do think that the statements that come out after this weekend and following the Ms. Good shooting don't help the matter, right? Where you rush out and give a narrative of events that is quickly disproven. But the bottom line is there's no question the agents today have a much more difficult job. I mean, in the public at times, there's some of these arrests.
Whose fault is that, you think? Is that the public's fault? Is that the media's fault? Is that sort of these groups now that are trying to foment resistance rather than protesting the laws?
You know, I think it's a lot of things. Listen, the Trump administration is saying we're going to enforce the laws against everybody, right? And I'm not sure that there's public support for that, right? There's widespread public support for focusing on the criminal populations. But this administration, and there's some people who say we're just focused on the worst, that's nonsense. But there are plenty in the administration who are honest that this is about a mass deportation effort to get everybody off the streets. That is always going to trigger protests. Leland, there's technology that has made things that made it more easy for these protesters to activate. And then finally, I would say, I think some, like I said at the outset, some other mistakes have been made, including the use of the Border Patrol. And I want to emphasize that's a critical distinction in these urban environments, pulling them up off the border and putting them in cities. And some of these aggressive confrontations, you know, have been with these Border Patrol agents who just they're not trained they don't deal with protesters down on the border. They deal with drug cartel mules. It's a great point. Yeah. It's
a great point. And look, our reporting now is that Border Patrol is being pulled out. Yeah. But to be fair here, I think it's about 52 or 55% of Americans say they wanted every illegal immigrant out. As you pointed out, about 80% say they want the criminal ones. We have time real quick. I'm going to roll Caroline Levitt talking about Tom Homan, who's now seeming to be taking over Minneapolis.
This is a Washington Post headline from 9 years ago, 2016. Meet the man the White House has honored for deporting illegal immigrants. And I would remind everyone in this room that it was former President Barack Hussein Obama who awarded a medal to Mr. Homan.
Tom Homan to Minneapolis, the right move?
It's a step in the right direction, Leland. I had an opportunity. I spent 5 years working with Tom. I have a lot of respect for Tom. I have to tell you, the fact that they announced Tom today and that they're pulling the Border Patrol back, I don't think that's an accident. Listen, Tom is a 20-some-odd-year-plus veteran special agent who worked at the INS before and then became ICE. I think he'll be able to bring some order to this and let me just say something very quickly, Leland. One thing that was very frustrating to me was this kind of proposition that some in the White House, I want to be clear, not everyone in the administration, suggests that either have Minneapolis and what we're seeing on the screen or you have no immigration enforcement. Tom knows that's not true. Tom knows ICE can do its job in a professional manner in a way that doesn't diminish enforcement but doesn't also have the chaos we've been seeing on the streets.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.